Foxborough, atmospheric tension, reached an all-time high during the second consecutive night of the live concert at Foxborough, where thousands of passionate music lovers gathered to witness an unforgettable performance by BTS. The energetic stadium was filled with pulsing lights, roaring crowds, and intense choreography, as the members delivered one powerful stage routine after another. Midway through the high-octane set, the group was executing a synchronized dance routine that had the entire stadium chanting along in absolute unison. While navigating the front edge of the stage during the performance, Jimin caught sight of something specific in the sea of waving light sticks and banners. Standing right at the barricade in the very front row, a female fan was holding up a brightly colored sign, high above the crowd to catch his attention. The message written boldly across the poster read, "I've been waiting 7 years to hug you." Jimin, representing nearly a decade of dedicated admiration. Reading the emotional words in the middle of the routine, Jimin made a sudden and completely unexpected decision that shocked everyone nearby. Without hesitation, he broke away from his stage position and ran straight toward the front section, where the fan was standing. Overcoming the barrier between performer and audience, Jimin immediately fulfilled the long-held dream that the fan had carried for 7 whole years. He leaned down and wrapped his arms around her in a warm, genuine embrace right there in front of thousands of cheering onlookers. Overwhelmed by the incredible gesture, the fan expressed her intense joy as Jimin willingly leaned in close and allowed her to plant a kiss on his cheek. The surrounding crowd erupted into loud cheers and deafening applause as the deeply emotional interaction unfolded live before their eyes. Streams of happy tears poured down the woman's face as she cried and screamed in pure excitement. Completely overwhelmed that her dream had finally come true, she held on to the precious moment with visible disbelief, overwhelmed by the warmth and humility shown by her favorite artist on such a grand stage. The heartwarming interaction quickly became the absolute highlight of the night in Foxborough, leaving an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed the extraordinary moment. The sudden movement on stage immediately caught the frontline security personnel completely off guard, as Jimin abruptly broke away from the core choreography and darted toward the barricade. Several venue guards instinctively tensed, their professional training kicking in as they prepared for a potential breach or safety hazard. For a brief second, confusion rippled through the security detail stationed directly below the main stage. With thousands of eyes trained on the sudden shift, the guards quickly positioned themselves tighter against the metal barrier, bracing for the surrounding crowd to surge forward in excitement. However, as Jimin reached the railing and extended his arms toward the tearful fan, the staff realized this was a deliberate act of goodwill rather than an emergency. Recognizing the artist's clear intention to interact directly with the fan, the security team instantly adapted their posture, shifting from an interceptive stance to a protective shield around the perimeter, while Jimin embraced the overwhelmed fan and allowed her to kiss his cheek. The surrounding venue staff remained on high, alert to ensure the moment remained safe and orderly. They carefully managed the pressure from neighboring fans in the pit, creating a secure boundary so the emotional exchange could take place without any disruption or safety risks. Once Jimin rejoined the rest of the group on stage, a collective sigh of relief washed over the front row security crew. What could have easily escalated into a chaotic scene was instead executed seamlessly, leaving the guards to maintain their steady vigilance while witnessing one of the most unforgettable fan interactions of the night. For a split second, time seemed to stand still in the middle of the roaring stadium as Jimin's sharp gaze pierced through the blinding haze of the stage lights. Scanning the front row mid-routine, his eyes locked onto the glowing handwritten sign, cutting through the overwhelming sea of thousands of cheering faces. The energetic tempo of the music seemed to fade into the background as he quietly read the 7-year-old promise written on the poster. The sudden realization froze his movements mid-step, breaking his flawless sync with the rest of the group for a brief, breathless moment. A rare pause hung in the air as he stood motionless under the spotlight, weighing the spontaneous impulse against the strict flow of the massive production. The surrounding crowd held its collective breath, sensing that something entirely unscripted was unfolding right before their eyes. In that single beat of hesitation, Jimin made his choice, letting pure emotion override the planned choreography. A soft smile broke across his face before he suddenly sprinted toward the edge of the platform, turning a quiet moment of eye contact into an unforgettable reality. As Jimin ran toward the edge of the stage, the sudden realization hit the young woman with overwhelming force, causing her entire body to tremble uncontrollably. Her knees buckled under the immense weight of the moment, and she instinctively gripped the cold metal barricade just to keep herself standing upright. The overwhelming shock of seeing her ultimate dream unfold in a matter of seconds left her visibly breathless. Hyperventilating from a mix of sheer disbelief and surging adrenaline, she struggled to draw air into her lungs as the distance between her and the superstar evaporated. When Jimin's arms wrapped around her, her body went almost entirely limp against his chest. Tears streamed uncontrollably down her flushed cheeks, and her hands shook violently as she reached up to press a gentle kiss onto his cheek, barely able to process the warmth of his genuine embrace. Witnessing her state of extreme physical distress, nearby fans and vigilant security personnel immediately stepped in to support her, holding her shoulders so she wouldn't collapse onto the concrete floor. She sobbed aloud, overwhelmed by the emotional release of a 7-year wait instantly coming to fruition. Even after Jimin retreated back to the center stage to rejoin his bandmates, the woman remained in a state of deep shock, leaning heavily on the guardrail with a bewildered, tear-streaked smile. Exhausted but ecstatically happy, she took deep, trembling breaths, completely consumed by the surreal reality of what had just transpired. As Jimin rushed toward the barrier, a sharp wave of raw envy instantly rippled through the surrounding front row crowd. For a fleeting second, the fans standing right beside the lucky woman gasped in utter disbelief, their eyes widening with a sudden mix of jealousy and heartbreak as they realized who had caught the superstar's exclusive attention. The immediate proximity to such an extraordinary moment triggered intense hysteria among the spectators. Some fans gripped their own signs tightly, tears of envious frustration welling in their eyes as they screamed out in a desperate bid to be noticed, unable to hide the bitter sting of watching someone else's dream come true right in front of them. However, as Jimin wrapped his arms around the woman and her body began to visibly collapse from pure emotional shock, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Seeing her tremble violently, hyperventilating and on the verge of fainting, the overwhelming jealousy among her neighbors instantly dissolved into shared human empathy. Without a second thought, the very fans who had felt a pang of envy reached out to support her, hands extended from both sides, gripping her arms and holding her waist firm against the barricade to prevent her from crashing to the floor, while Jimin gently held her in his warm embrace. By the time Jimin stepped back and returned to the main stage, the initial wave of resentment had completely transformed into a collective moment of emotional solidarity. The neighboring fans, still teary-eyed themselves, cheered warmly for her, gently patting her back and comforting her as she sobbed in total disbelief over her answered wish. This unexpected moment instantly swept across social media, with fans worldwide sharing clips of the heartwarming exchange and celebrating the unforgettable connection between Jimin and his dedicated supporters. The electric energy inside Foxborough stayed at an all-time high for the remainder of the night, proving once again how deeply the group values the loyalty of their global fan base. As the second night of the Foxborough concert came to a triumphant close, the extraordinary interaction served as a powerful reminder of the incredible 7-year journey shared between the artist and his followers. For everyone present in the stadium, it was a striking demonstration of humility and genuine affection that transcended the grand scale of a stadium show. Moments like these highlight the unique bond that turns massive concert venues into intimate spaces, filled with lifelong memories. The emotional highlight in Foxborough will undoubtedly be remembered as one of the most iconic fan interactions of the entire tour, leaving an undeniable impact on the millions watching both in person and online. What are your thoughts on Jimin's heartwarming gesture toward this devoted fan? Would you have reacted the same way if your long-held dream finally came true on stage? Drop your thoughts and share your own favorite concert memories in the comments below.